My name is Ida. I'm sitting in my new office, looking out at the city skyline, and it's hard to believe how far I've come. Just 6 months ago, I was fired from my job at a Fortune 500 tech company, and now I'm leading a security consulting division at a new firm. It's been a wild ride, and I'm excited to share my story with you. Let me take you back to that fateful day when I was called into the conference room. The morning sun was glinting off the glass walls as Ryan, the HR manager, slid a tablet across the table. On the screen was a grainy image of me entering a competitor's building last Thursday evening. It wasn't exactly damning evidence, but it was enough for what they'd already decided to do. "We've received some concerning reports about your after-hours activities," Ryan said, his voice neutral but his eyes cold. "Our employment agreement explicitly prohibits working for another company while employed here." Beside him, Max's lips curled into a sneer. "We have a zero-tolerance policy for this kind of betrayal," he said. I felt nothing. No fear, no anger, not even surprise. Just a strange lightness, as if gravity had loosened its hold on me. "You're terminated. Effective immediately," Ryan continued. He pushed a termination letter toward me. "Security will escort you to collect your things." I didn't argue, didn't try to explain. I simply nodded and said, "You're right. I should focus on one position." Their expressions flickered, confusion crossing their features before settling back into professional neutrality. They had expected tears, pleading, maybe anger, not this calm acceptance. What they couldn't see was the weight lifting from my shoulders as I placed my access badge on the table. 3 years of constant anxiety, of carrying an entire company's digital safety alone, evaporated in an instant. Max cleared his throat, uncomfortable with my composure. "We'll need all passwords and access credentials before you leave," he said. I smiled. "Everything's documented in the system knowledge base, just as protocol requires," I replied. Another lie. The documentation existed, but it was like giving someone a map without a compass. Technically complete, but practically useless without my contextual knowledge. As security walked me to my desk, colleagues stared, whispered. I packed my few personal items, a ceramic mug, a small plant that had somehow survived 3 years of neglectful watering, and a notebook full of system architectures only I truly understood. Leo, our VP of technology, watched from his glass-walled office, expression unreadable. He made no move to intervene, though he knew better than anyone what would happen next. When the security guard escorted me through the lobby, spring air hit my face. I breathed deeply for what felt like the first time in years. By the time I reached my car, my phone buzzed with a message from Lily. "Still on for 2 p.m.?" she asked. I typed back, "Yes, and now I can accept your full-time offer." 3 years of building someone else's empire was enough. 3 years of being the invisible infrastructure that kept everything running while others took the credit. 3 years of warnings ignored, requests denied, promotions passed over. Now it was over, and the countdown had begun. Let me tell you how I ended up in this situation. I grew up in a small town, the daughter of hardworking parents. My father was a mechanic, and my mother was a schoolteacher. They instilled in me a strong work ethic and a love of learning. I was always interested in technology, and I worked hard to get into a top university to study computer science. After graduation, I landed a job at a small firm, where I quickly made a name for myself as a talented network security architect. Then, 3 years ago, I was recruited by a Fortune 500 tech company. I was excited about the opportunity to work on cutting-edge technology and to be part of a world-class security team. During my interview, Leo had promised me the world. "We're building a world-class security team," he'd said, his eyes bright with genuine enthusiasm. "You'll lead a specialized group focusing on our proprietary systems." The salary wasn't spectacular, but the challenge was irresistible. Building security architecture for cutting-edge technology, working with brilliant minds. I signed immediately, but reality hit me hard by month 3. The first round of strategic restructuring eliminated 2 senior positions on my team. By month 6, another colleague left for better pay elsewhere. His replacement lasted 4 months before budget freezes eliminated the position entirely. "It's just a temporary situation," Leo assured me. We'll staff up next quarter. Next quarter became next year. Next year became let's reassess after the merger. The merger came and went, and still, it was just me. Meanwhile, the systems grew more complex. Our client base tripled. The attack vectors multiplied. I built increasingly sophisticated protection measures, working nights, weekends, and holidays to keep pace with emerging threats. When I warned about critical vulnerabilities, my emails were acknowledged, but action items mysteriously disappeared from meeting minutes. When I requested additional staff, I was told to prioritize better. When I asked for compensation that matched my expanding responsibilities, I received praise instead of dollars. "You're a rock star," Leo would say, clapping my shoulder. "Nobody understands these systems like you do." That was the problem. Nobody did understand them. Nobody wanted to understand them. I offered to train others to document the increasingly Byzantine architecture that had evolved under pressure, but my offers were met with nods, smiles, and zero follow-through. Last winter, I prevented a breach that would have exposed millions of client records. Working 72 hours straight, barely sleeping, I identified the intrusion pattern and built a new defense layer in real time. When the crisis passed, I received a $500 gift card and a mention in the company newsletter. The CEO, who took credit for our robust security culture, received a 7-figure bonus. That was when I realized what I had become. Not invaluable, but invisible. The infrastructure nobody sees until it fails. I tried one last time, scheduling a meeting with Leo and the executive team. "Our current security staffing is unsustainable," I explained, showing charts, data, and industry comparisons. "We need at least 3 more specialists to maintain this architecture properly." Leo nodded sympathetically. After Q4 results, he promised. "We're just in a temporary holding pattern." I'd heard that line for 3 years. Without proper staffing, this system requires continuous maintenance from someone who understands its entirety, I warned. "If I were hit by a bus tomorrow, you'd have serious problems within days. Catastrophic ones within weeks." The CFO frowned. "Sounds like we need better documentation, not more headcount," he said. I felt something break inside me. "I've submitted comprehensive documentation requests for 18 months, I said. "They've been deprioritized every quarter." Uncomfortable silence followed, then redirection, postponement, vague promises. I left that meeting knowing nothing would change, and I needed change. My health was deteriorating. My relationship was strained by constant work emergencies. Something had to give. Then came the cybersecurity conference in Boston. I wasn't supposed to attend. Travel budgets were frozen. But the organizer was an old college friend who got me a speaking slot on adaptive threat response architectures. The company couldn't refuse the free publicity. That's where I met Lily, the head of security for our largest competitor. She caught me after my presentation. "Impressed by the theoretical framework you outlined," she said, her eyes bright with genuine interest. "The implementation must be fascinating. I'd love to hear more about how you've actualized these concepts." We talked for hours, carefully avoiding specifics about our employers. Just 2 professionals discussing theoretical approaches, architecture philosophies. It was the first real professional conversation I'd had in years. As the conference ended, Lily handed me her card. "We could use your perspective on our new security framework," she said. "Strictly advisory, weekends only, nothing operational, nothing that would create conflicts." The consulting fee she mentioned exceeded my monthly salary for weekend work. For the first time in a long time, I felt valued. I hesitated only briefly before accepting. The work was advisory only, reviewing their proposed systems, not touching their actual infrastructure, nothing that violated confidentiality, nothing operational that impacted either company. For 8 weeks, I lived a double life. Weekdays, I maintained the digital fortress that protected billions in assets, unrecognized and undervalued. Weekends, I was respected, heard, and compensated appropriately for my expertise. Then, last Thursday, I parked 2 blocks from Lily's office building for our regular meeting. Someone recognized my car. Someone made assumptions. Someone decided I was dispensable. What they failed to understand was that their entire security infrastructure required specialized weekly adjustments that only I knew how to perform. Adjustments I'd try to teach others, but nobody had time to learn. Adjustments that prevented the exact cascade of system failures I'd warned about repeatedly. As the security guard escorted me from the building, my phone lit up with a message from Lily. Advisory board approved full-time offer. Chief security architect, triple your current salary. Team of 8. When can you start? I looked back at the gleaming tower where I'd given 3 years of my life. The security guard avoided my eyes, uncomfortable with his assignment. Is it worth it? I asked him quietly. Working for people who discard you this easily. He had no answer, just a practiced, neutral expression. But I saw the flash of recognition in his eyes. He understood exactly what I was asking. I texted Lily back. I can start Monday. What my former employers didn't realize as they rushed me out in precisely 72 hours during end-of-quarter processing when their data traffic peaked was that their entire system would require the specialized maintenance only I performed. The maintenance I'd been begging them to let me train others to do. Not sabotage, not revenge, just the natural consequence of ignoring warnings, of valuing systems over the people who built them. As I drove away, my phone began to ring. Leo's number. I smiled and turned off the ringer. The clock was ticking. By Friday afternoon, I had signed Lily's employment contract. Chief security architect with a team of 8 specialists, triple my previous salary and equity options. The relief was physical, like putting down a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten what normal felt like. I spent the weekend preparing for my new role, sleeping more deeply than I had in years. No emergency alerts waking me at 3 a.m. No expectations of immediate response, just silence and rest. Monday morning, I arrived at Helixian headquarters dressed in a new suit. The lobby's soaring ceilings and natural light were designed to impress, but it was the respect that struck me most. We're thrilled you're joining us, Ida, Lily said, giving me a proper orientation tour. Let me introduce you to your team. The team? The word sounded foreign after years of solitary responsibility. 8 specialists, each with defined roles that complemented one another, she said. They looked at me with curiosity. Not the desperate relief I'd grown accustomed to when appearing to solve the latest crisis. We've heard incredible things about your adaptive security approach, said Ethan, a threat analysis specialist with bright eyes and quick hands. Looking forward to learning from you. By lunchtime, we were deep in animated discussion about their current architecture. They had questions, thoughtful ones. They challenged my assumptions, offered alternatives, built upon my ideas rather than simply implementing them. This was what collaboration felt like. I'd almost forgotten. Meanwhile, across town, the first warning signs were appearing at my former workplace. I didn't need spies to tell me. The system's rhythms were as familiar to me as my own heartbeat. Monday afternoon would bring the first authentication bottlenecks as the weekly credential refresh cycle tried to execute without the manual override I always performed. By Tuesday morning, log files would begin to overflow, slowing response times. By Wednesday afternoon, exactly 72 hours after my departure, the cascading failures would begin during end-of-quarter processing peak. I felt a twinge of guilt, not for what would happen, I had warned them repeatedly, but for the innocent employees who would suffer alongside those who had made the decisions. My phone buzzed at 4:52 p.m. Monday. Leo. I let it go to voicemail. Ida, it's Leo. Look, there seems to be some issue with the authentication servers. Probably just a configuration thing. Call me when you get this. Thanks. His voice was casual, just a small technical hiccup. I deleted the message. Tuesday morning brought 3 more calls from increasingly senior people. By afternoon, the tone had changed dramatically. This is Mia from the executive office. Our systems are experiencing significant slowdowns. The technical team has been unable to resolve the issue. The CEO has authorized me to discuss terms for your return as a consultant to address these urgent matters. I texted back a single line. I'm focusing on one position now. As suggested at Helixian, I was immersed in building something new rather than desperately maintaining something old. My team and I mapped out a security architecture that incorporated the best elements of my theoretical models with their existing infrastructure. Lily checked in regularly but never hovered. "How are you settling in?" she asked. "It's strange," I admitted. "Having resources being heard." She nodded. "We've all worked at places that didn't value expertise. That's why our retention rate is triple the industry average." Late Tuesday night, my personal email chimed from Leo, marked urgent. "Critical system failure imminent. Name your consulting rate. Please respond immediately." I closed the laptop without replying. Wednesday dawned bright and clear. At my morning team meeting, we finalized our implementation plan for the new security architecture. The energy was electric. 8 brilliant minds building something together. Each contribution acknowledged and valued. My phone began vibrating continuously around 2 p.m. I silenced it during our planning session. When I checked later, I had 17 missed calls and twice as many texts. One from Ryan in HR. "Legal has reviewed your termination. We may have acted hastily. Please call urgently." Another from Max. "Whatever they're paying you, we'll double it." This is critical from the CEO himself. National clients losing access to accounts, regulatory implications, board meeting in progress. A call immediately. I felt no satisfaction, just a hollow confirmation of everything I had warned them about. They had built a kingdom on my shoulders, then pushed me away, without understanding what would collapse. That evening, as I drove home from my new office, a breaking news alert flashed across my dashboard display. Major service outage reported at leading financial technology provider. Thousands of client accounts inaccessible. No company name yet, but I knew the mainstream exposure would come tomorrow when clients couldn't access their quarterly reports. When regulators started asking questions, when the stock began to plummet. At home, I opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving and sat on my balcony watching the sunset. My phone lit up again, Leo's number. This time, I answered. "Ida." His voice was ragged with exhaustion. "Everything's failing. Sequential authentication breakdowns cascading into the transaction processing layer. Nobody can stop it. I warned you," I said quietly. "For 3 years, I warned you." I know. The admission sounded physically painful. "Tell me what to do." "Any price." I took a slow sip of wine. "It's not about price anymore, Leo. It's about value. You valued what I produced, not me. Not enough to listen when I told you it was unsustainable. Not enough to staff properly. Not enough to compensate fairly. Not enough to credit honestly." Silence stretched between us. "You know what would have prevented this?" I continued. "Any one person besides me understanding how these systems actually work. Anyone taking 5 minutes to read the warnings I documented in every quarterly review. Anyone listening when I said this exact scenario would happen if I ever left." His breathing was the only response. "The recovery procedure exists," I said finally. "It's in the disaster documentation I submitted last year. The documentation that was deprioritized because you're handling everything so well, Ida." I ended the call and turned off my phone. Thursday morning, I arrived at Helixion to find Lily waiting in the lobby. "Have you seen the news?" she asked, holding out her tablet. The headline was stark. "Major tech failure erases billions in market value." Beneath it, a photo of my former company's headquarters. "Their entire client database is locked," Lily said. "Transaction processing down for 16 hours and counting. The stock has dropped 40% since opening." I felt strangely empty looking at the numbers. This wasn't satisfaction. This was a waste of talent, trust, and potential caused by short-sighted decisions made by people who wouldn't suffer the worst consequences. "They've been calling our executive office," Lily continued. "Trying to reach you through us for emergency support." "No." Lily's expression was grim. "They're threatening legal action, claiming you sabotaged their systems before leaving." My stomach dropped. "I didn't." "We know," she interrupted. "Our legal team has already reviewed your contract and exit procedures. You're clean, but they're desperate and looking for someone to blame." As we walked to my new office, the weight I'd shed began to return. Not from guilt. I had done nothing wrong, but from the recognition that even now they refused to accept responsibility. My team was waiting, concerned faces tracking my entrance. Is it true? Ethan asked. About your former employer? I nodded. Did you really build their entire security infrastructure yourself? Another team member asked. Not by choice, I said. By necessity. Understanding passed between us. The silent recognition of a shared experience. Every person in that room had at some point been the unacknowledged foundation others stood upon. Well, Ava said finally, their disaster is educational for us. Let's make sure our systems never depend on any single person, including you, Ida. The simple wisdom of this statement nearly brought tears to my eyes. This was leadership, acknowledging expertise while preventing unhealthy dependency. We returned to our work, designing resilience into every layer of the new architecture. But as morning turned to afternoon, the news grew worse for my former employer. Regulators had launched an investigation. Client defections were accelerating. The stock had dropped another 15%. My phone, which I'd finally turned back on, displayed 57 missed calls. The last one came from an unknown number. The voicemail was from the board chair himself. Miss Ida, this is Victor. The situation has become untenable. The board has removed several executives this